The success of the British films really let Walt know that live action was something that he could do. And at last he was becoming that full-fledged live action filmmaker he'd wanted to be back in the 1920s. And he came back and started building another soundstage for the next big production, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
His name was associated with fantasy. So if you went to the classics and took an elaborate fantasy like Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, people wouldn't find that too big a stretch.
Got a whale of a tale to tell you, lads, a whale of a tale or two.
Walt threw all of their resources into it. Kirk Douglas and James Mason and Peter Lorre. It was CinemaScope and Stereophonic Sound. It was a big mega production.
Every evening, they'd go up and look at the dailies, and then the writer would go into Walt's office with him after, and every little thing was taken care of and thought out and worked on and reworked and reworked and reworked till there was no stone left unturned. He slept there half the weeknights.
One of the great things about most of the Disney films, certainly the good Disney films, is that the villains are not two-dimensional characters.
There are the assassins, the dealers in death. I am the Avenger.
Near the center of the movie, there's a scene where you learn what makes Nemo tick. This is his sort of way of getting back at the war machine.
It has taken everything else from me, everything but my secret, the secret of my submarine boat and the energy that propels it. They tried. They cast me into prison, and when they failed... tortured my wife and young son to death.
You could even look at 20,000 Leagues in some way as being an anti-war film.
Do you know the meaning of love, Professor?
I believe I do.
What you fail to understand is the power of hate.
I was working on a lot then. The big second stage was a tank stage where the squid fight was shot.
Give me a harpoon!
The original staging was on a calm sea against a sunset sky. The squid looked so phony, and Walt just threw it out. So they staged it at night in a storm with 40-knot wind blowing and rain. It was what made the movie unique. That was the way Walt was. That was why he needed my dad to keep dredging up money. The film was a huge hit.
He didn't want to go into television. That became a practical matter. Walt Disney was trying to build Disneyland, but he didn't have the money to do so. The through line here is really interesting. His brother Roy, who was a wizard at finding money, found that the last piece of the puzzle was in the hands of the ABC television network. They would put up the remaining money to build Disneyland if he would give them a weekly television show. That was the trade-off.
Roy told Walt, "We're gonna have $1.5 million tied up in this thing before you're through, Walt." And of course, $1 million wouldn't buy the steps up to Cinderella's castle right now.
3 days before the park opened, there were two things that ran. One was the train that ran around the thing and the Mark Twain that ran around the river. That was the only things working yet. 3 days.
But then Walt Disney found that television had its benefits. And one of the chief benefits of television was promoting his new movies that were coming to theaters.
Well, this is how a busy movie set looks to the man behind the camera. Might seem to be pretty hectic and confusing, but it's actually a well-organized and efficient operation.
He had a lot of fun doing it because he was such a good storyteller and because he was very genuine.
Sorry you got lost.
He brought with him a gravity, but he was also charming. He was like a daddy. You know, he was like the daddy everybody dreams about, you know?
Jules Verne once said, "What one man can imagine, other men can do. And in his book, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Mr. Verne himself imagined some pretty weird and wonderful things.
With the team that was making 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, he was smart enough to know that he should send a crew along to chronicle the making of the picture as a one-hour segment on television called Operation Undersea, and it won an Emmy Award. The man puts a one-hour advertisement for his new movie on TV and wins an Emmy for it.
That was a wonderful marketing device that enabled Walt to recognize the value of television at a time when other studios were staying away from it.
But there's still plenty left to see, so let's go in.
With the success of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Walt moved with full speed into live-action filmmaking, putting together a team of writers and directors and producers. He would find the properties and have writers develop the properties and set them off into little production units.